Good evening, I'm Derek Me Show, and it is time to go flush in the pocket. And tonight we got a great one. This is presented by Brunswick, sponsored by Just in Time Recreation. Man, they have a lot of road to go to get back to normal. Check them out at justintimebowl.com. Check them out on Facebook. Justin and Sammy. Um, thoughts are with you, man. Always. And what a great center, horrible tragedy. But tonight we have one of my favorite pros, a 10-time PBA champion, won the one major, the 98 Tournament of Champions, won three. He likes the desert. He won 3 times in Tucson. 10-time PBA champion, PBA Hall of Famer, Bryan Goebel. Bryan, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Derek. Great to be here, man.
Oh, it's really good. Really good to have you. When I started this podcast, I thought I was going to get two yeses, one from Andrew Pfeffer, the other from Parker Bone, because we're good friends. But I'm actually surprised at how this thing is kind of taken off. And on December 18th, it's going to be a year old. So I'm, everybody, thank you for your support, and like and subscribe. And this is going to be a fun one. So I mean, I'm sure you've heard about the tragedy in Lewiston. What were your thoughts when you heard that?
On what?
Did you heard about the tragedy in Lewiston, Maine? No?
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously that was awful.
Yeah.
They're happening all over the place, which is really disappointing. But obviously that was in a bowling alley, and so it makes hits home and starts. It could happen anywhere. It could just happen anywhere you go. Any state, any place in America now.
You bet.
It's awful.
Oh yeah. But what wasn't awful is your bowling career. How did you actually start bowling?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. I think it was pretty lucky.
Well, okay. Like, how did you, like, when you were growing up, how did you
Well, I started bowling when I was 8 years old, and my parents, I have a brother that's about 15 months older than me, and my parents had a couple. They had a boy they were putting into a league. Wanted to know if my brother and I wanted to start bowling league Saturday morning. So I started bowling on Saturday mornings, and that was just, I lived 3 blocks from a bowling center, so we got up Saturday mornings and we walked to the bowl, and I bowled till I was probably about 12. My brother was just 14 when he decided to quit bowling. And it was about that time, about 1973. And I started coming home from bowling on Saturdays and tuning in to watching, Wide World of Sports and the Pro Bowlers Tour. And at that time, I was playing basketball. I was playing baseball. I had my foot in soccer a little bit, and I was bowling. So I was doing a little of everything, and coming home watching was fun. Watching people like Dick Weber was still bowling, and Johnny Petraglia was still bowling, and Dave Davis, and some really great players, George Pappas, and these were the guys I was watching. And my brother and I had a hallway upstairs in our bedroom, and I put 3 Tupperware cups, and I had a plastic bowling ball, and I went up there and I started pretending to be those guys. I'd try to throw it just like they threw it, left-handed, whatever. Earl Anthony was coming onto the scene, and so that's really what got my blood flowing, trying to be those guys and bowl like those. And so I was 12, 13, started actually trying to hook the ball like people do back then. And that's just kind of how I started doing it. I really never had, a coach. I literally just tried to pick up things and throw it the way other people were throwing it, and just kind of progressed. I started shooting, the lanes were pretty easy. I didn't know it. You're 12, 13-year-old kid, and you're just starting to hook it, and you don't know it. But, I started to shoot 200 games and 600 games, and certainly 300s back then were not common at all. So you shoot 700, that was a huge score back then. So shot my first one when I was just turned 14. So, I shot like a 714. And so I was just starting to get the blood to actually start competing in things. And but I was still playing the other sports. And I think more than anything else, I kind of got better at every sport I was playing. But when I finished high school, that was pretty much the end of most of my sports except for bowling. So I went to Kansas University, and I actually was trying out for the baseball team, the walk-ons that fall, and I thought I'd made the team. I made it to the final 11 guys. There were about 150 guys, and the final 11 guys came for Thursday afternoon, and I 10 pitchers, and I swear I was going to make it. And Friday afternoon, they posted it, and they kept 3 guys, 2 left-handed pitchers, and the only player that wasn't a pitcher, and I didn't make it. So I was pretty depressed. I'm an hour away from home, and I decided to stay up there. I walked around, walked to the bowling alley, and they had a sign on the door for the Union Bowl that said bowling tryouts. So I decided to go in that weekend and ask the guy about trying out for the Kansas bowling team, and he said, sure, go ahead. If you give it a try, I don't know how good you are, but I came in there and I made the team. And Bob Glass, who's a Hall of Fame senior bowler, was going to coach that year for the only time he ever did it. And so I bowled for Bob, and he introduced me to the PBA after 1 year bowling for KU, and I joined, and that's what happened. So I made the biggest mistake of joining the PBA, and here I am 43 years ago, and here I am in the Hall of Fame. Who knew?
Yeah. So you say nobody coached you besides before you went to college, and then and before you were coached by Bob Glass, you didn't have a coach growing up.
No, Bob grew up. He's 14 years older than me. He graduated from the same high school I did, and I never knew him. And actually, Bob Hanley, 5-time titleist on tour, graduated from the same high school as me, and he's about 8 years older than me. I knew him from the late 70s when he was on tour, but never knew that. And I didn't know Bob Glass until I bowled for KU. So then I met him for the first time and found out he was from the same area I was and everything, which was kind of neat. But up to that point, there were always coaches wandering around the bowling centers, and when you're bowling junior bowling, but, and they offer tips, follow through and keep your balance. And, as a 14-year-old kid, basically you just kind of listen, you hear it goes in and ear and out and ear. I used to go up and back then there were no automatic scorers. So I used to go up and keep score for tournaments and earn free games. And I probably had about 10, 12 free games every week. And I used to just go up by myself and practice. And so, that's basically how I learned to bowl, kind of learning to hook it and try to hook it more. And I really never learned how to shoot spares very well until I met Bob Glass. He was the first guy I ever watched never miss spares. And of course, people always say that to you, but it doesn't sink in when you're striking a lot. I hooked the ball a lot back then, and for back then with a yellow dot and stuff. And I was considered a pretty big cranker. I impressed a lot of people with how much I could hook the ball, even though I whiffed every spare I shot at. And Bob Glass was the one that said, hey, if you learn to shoot some spares, you might be better. And so, I started learning how to throw the ball straight at spares, and it was a real slow process, but I did learn how to shoot spares better. And it changed my life, changed my career. So
yeah, and if I was to describe, if somebody says, Derek, if you were to describe Bryan Goebel, I'd say, definitely a down and in type of player. I think that's majority of what I've seen you do. Is that your A game or now, or is that?
Well, honestly, when I first joined the PBA in the fall of 1981, and I was still the first urethane ball came out in the summer of 1980, and it was the Angle. And I didn't have a urethane ball until 1982. But when I first joined, all I was throwing was yellow dots. And when we bowl on some lacquer centers, T48, a hard rubber ball, or that was a soft rubber ball. And I tried to rip the fingers out of every ball. And I was hooking the ball from fourth arrow from 20 to 8 everywhere I was going, which was a lot of hook with a yellow dot back then. And people were oohing and on, and I struck a lot. And so when I put the first urethane ball in my hands, it rolled out. And so it hooked less for me. And as the balls have progressively hooked more and more, I've hooked it less and less. And my ball hooks so much quicker and stops with the more aggressive hooking balls. So it's been a process of hooking it less and less as the balls hook more and more.
Yeah.
And as strange as that seems, I also got better and better as I cut down my hook.
Yeah.
So it helped a lot.
So where did you come up with the style? You hold the ball up to your chin. You're kind of really nice to it at the bottom of the swing. When did you develop the style that we all know today?
I think that somewhere in the middle 80s, I lifted the ball a little bit to slow down because I was trying to keep things slow so I could speed up at the end and throw it where I was looking. And I could do a lot of things with the bowling ball if I stayed under control. I could hook it when I needed to. I could throw it a little faster when I needed to. I had a couple times in the early 80s, I had some people who told me I was not going to cash in this tournament if I came bowled in it because they played right up the gutter and I couldn't play up the gutter because I hooked it so much. Well, I learned how to play down and in and straight up the gutter. And I think I learned to do that when I raised the ball up. So nobody ever taught me to do it. I think I just did it. I don't know exactly when, but then it became comfortable. 2 little short steps and then 4 steps and off I went. So,
question just for fun: have you ever tried two-handed?
I've actually thrown a couple balls like that at home, but it's hard on your back and your knees when you're older. So nobody besides Mike Miller, really had ever done that, thrown it that way. Basically, he didn't throw 2 hands, but throwing it that way, back in the 90s, early, he came out the fall of 1990 doing that and made a show. And that was pretty phenomenal. So
was there any hesitation to go on tour? What was what did you accomplish in your bowling life that made you say, okay, I'm going to go on tour and I'm going to be successful?
Well, I think it was just at first I went out, when I joined the PBA the fall of 1981, I bowled 13. Actually, I bowled 15 regionals. I went 11 for my first 13, and I joined, and I had a pretty big head on my shoulders. But after that 13th one, I decided, I wanted to try to bowl something on tour, and we had to go to PBA school back then. So the very final tournament of the year was the World Open in Chicago, and in order to bowl it, I had to go to the PBA school to bowl it. So I just skipped my classes at KU and drove to Chicago with another guy. We went to the school, we passed, so we could bowl the tournament, out of the rabbits. Then I made it out of qualifying. I made it into the first cut. Then I made the finals, and I finished 12th. This is the very first national tournament I ever bowled in my life. And I finished 12th. I got a $2,300 check for the week, which was like $1 million to me. And I said, hey, this is it for me. No more school. I'm ready to go out on tour and take the world by storm. I'm going to be the greatest bowler ever. So I dropped out of school, went out in 1982 and went 0 for 10. And every week I bowled, I got worse and worse. So by the end of those 10 tournaments, I was ready to quit bowling. It was so bad. And it took me about a year and a half. I went back to school and started bowling again in league. And basically it took me about a year and a half where I was throwing the ball good again, and decided that maybe instead of quitting, I should work on spares, because I think I missed every single spare I shot in those 10 tournaments I bowled. I don't remember ever picking up a spare. I was horrible.
What was your hardest spare?
Oh, every spare. I can't tell you that, but this is what I remember when I went out on tour that year. I got an orange dot had just come out from Colombia. It was I didn't realize it was urethane, but I took it with me. And the very first tournament I bowled, when I tried to bowl with it, I was throwing the ball somewhere around fourth arrow, and I was trying to throw it to the gutter, and I couldn't keep it off the head pin. It hooked so much. And I had no idea how to, every spare I threw, I hooked it that much shooting it. So I almost cashed the first week. I was in the middle of the road the second week. I got out of the rabbits third in the third tournament, but then shot 400 under. The fifth tournament, I didn't make it out of the rabbits. The next tournament, I was 700 under at the U.S. Open in Houston, and David Husted won his first U.S. Open, 1982. Mm-hmm. And that tournament, I was 750 under for 24 games, because I think I took from ball one, I was throwing a Columbia blue dot from the very first shot of the tournament. The entire tournament, that's all I bowled with. And I think I took the 6 out of the 3-6-10 every time I shot it because I hooked it so much. And it was an experience that I wouldn't give back. I was so bad those 10 weeks. I mean, obviously the tour went to short oil that year. I had no idea what the tour shots were or anything when I went out there. I was bowling on regionals and they were just house shots. So basically when I went on tour, I'd never really seen all these tough conditions. So I hooked the ball a lot and I was horrible. So, but I learned a lot that year, because when I finally started bowling again, I realized obviously I got to make spares, and it, obviously helped by learning that the hard way. So the next time I got married out of college in 85 and got a job and was working and started to bowl a few regionals again and working on my spare shooting. And in 1988, Bob Glass invited me to go bowl the Santa Claus Open in Edmond, Oklahoma. We'd never bowled it. We didn't even know what it was. And I didn't even know what a Calcutta was. Neither did Bob Glass. We went down there looking at the $4,000 first prize, and who knew what the Calcutta was? We got there and they bid off on every player. I didn't take myself. I wasn't, what? Mark Baker was out there. Bob Benoit had just shot 300 that year on TV. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of good bowlers down there bowling that were on tour that I knew who they were. And so I thought, my gosh, there's 160 players here, and didn't get myself. So at 2:30 in the morning, I'm bowling Norm Duke for the title. And he finished first and shot 179. And the best I could do was strike out in the 10th for 172. They were magnesium pins. And I threw the first strike, and I had about 8 guys go nuts behind me. And they came down and told me, come on, you can do it. You can do it. Strike out. I threw the second one, and they went crazy back there. I had no idea why I couldn't win. I threw the last strike. They came down, and I guess they had me and 10 pins in a bet. So I ended up finishing second to Norm Duke. And that happened in the early December of 1988. And that made me think, if I could finish second in this tournament with all these guys, man, maybe I should be out on tour. As stupid as it was, because this tournament was a lucky thing. It was just eliminator type thing. But I quit my job and went out on tour the next year because of that tournament. So in 1989, when I went out in the winter of 89, I went 1 for 8, and I almost quit again. And my wife wouldn't let me because I'd quit my job. So I came home and I went to the bowl every day, Monday through Friday, for 3 hours a day. And I practiced for about 4 weeks before the spring tour started. I practiced every day and shooting spares. I never pushed a spare off. And I thought, I've got to get even better at spare shooting. And when I went back out on the spring tour in 1989, I went 3 for 3. And that summer I went 5 for 6 and made my first show. In fact, I made 2 shows that summer, and that was it. It was over. From that point on, my career started, and it was all, I really believe it was from that month of working on spares 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. I mean, it really made me it just improved my game so much. So that's it. If it wouldn't have happened, I'd have never been there.
Watching you bowl, I would have never guessed that you had trouble with spares.
Well, nobody ever saw me on TV before 1989. I'd never done anything in my life on TV. And everybody would say that if they would have seen me shoot spares. Bob Glass is the only guy that probably knows. If you ever get a chance to interview him, he's 76 years old now. He hasn't bowled in 16 years, and I talk to him every year. But he would tell you how bad I was. I'll tell you this. Obviously, hey, this is your fault. You asked me on here, and I talk a lot.
I love it. Listen,
so I'm bowling with
before you continue.
Huh?
Before you continue, I have to tell you now, not that we have to do this, but I was on for 4 hours with Schlegel and had the time of my life. So you go right ahead.
I'm bowling with Bob Glass in 1985, and we're bowling the doubles tournament in Springfield, Illinois, the PBA Midwest doubles tournament. And we're bowling Leroy Bornhop and Randy Lightfoot for third and fourth place in this regional. And however they put it down, Bob was leading off and I'm anchor. Okay. Bob was a better bowler than me. And so I'm anchor. So it comes down to the 10th frame and I get up to bowl and I need to mark for us to finish third. And the difference is $1,200. So it's about $600 a man. No, I'm sorry, $800. So it's about $400 a man. So I get up, I throw my first ball in the 10th frame, and I leave a 10 pin. And Bob Glass is keeping score, and they're not automatic scores. So he's sitting at the table, and when I leave the 10 pin and I turn around, this is what he does.
Oh no.
And I shot the 10 pin and missed it. And we drove there together, and it was about a 5.5 hour drive. So driving home, I couldn't have apologized to him more times, but it was that tournament that made me determined to become a better spare shooter. That was the tournament that I said, that's never going to happen again. From now on, I am going to make my spares in the clutch. So I spent the next 5 years working when I can at spare shooting. And when I went out in 1989 and went 1 for 8, those 8 tournaments, the first tournament, it was the first time back out in Vegas. I missed by about 100 pins. The second tournament, I made the finals in. The next tournament, I missed by 30 pins, and the next one by 11 pins, getting a check. And when I stopped, you always think, oh, man, I left 2 solid 8s. Oh, wow, here and here. But when I really thought about it, each 6-game block we bowled, I probably missed 2 single pins. So now you're talking about at least 6 in the tournament. So that's 60 pins. So I got to thinking about that at the end of the stint when I was 1 for 8 and thinking that I probably would have gone like 6 for 8 if I would have been a better spare shooter instead of 1 for 8. So for that next month, that's why I went in and I threw every shot I could. Every shot I threw like the tournament was on the line. So if I left something, I shot the spare. And I didn't really feel like I had made a difference in my game. But when I went to bowl the 3 spring stops, the first one was in Phoenix. I threw the first strike in the 10th in the 18th game to get a check. So I cashed. The next tournament in Fresno was a grind out, and I shot my spares better than I'd ever shot them before in my life. I was 22 over the first block and in the cash, 22 over the second block, so I was 44 over and in the cash, and shot 40-something over the last block to get a check again from shooting spares. And the third tournament was the doubles tournament in Vegas, and I bowled with Bob Glass, and we made the finals and finished 20th. So those 3 tournaments changed everything because my confidence grew 10 times just cashing in all 3 events. And I felt so good about myself. So when I started the summer tour, I started with the 3rd stop because the first 2 were up in the Northwest. So I started in LA, and my wife went with me in Riverside, and I made the show. So all of a sudden, you talk about a confidence builder. And I think really that was it. I mean, at that point, I started for the first time and ever really feeling relaxed and comfortable. And I knew I was shooting spares much, much better now. And it really did change. It really did change my career. So
Yeah.
the 4 weeks that and every time I was home after that, I was in the bowl Monday through Friday, 3 hours a day. For the bowl opened at 9, I was there till noon, from 9 to noon. And that's how my work ethic began, and it's never ended. I made the decision that that's why I became a good bowler, was because I was willing to put in the time and do the work, and it paid off. So
what were you doing from 9 to noon? And I that sounds like I wasn't listening, but I was. The reason I asked that question is because if I say I'm going to go practice, I'm probably just going to go bowl and, bowl 3 games and maybe work on a hand position or whatever. Were you throwing at full racks, or were you just picking off pins trying to work on your spares?
no, I had full racks, but keep in mind that 1989 I had like 4 balls. I had a blue hammer, a red hammer, I had a red pearl hammer, and I carried a white dot with me. And those were your 4. You had 2 double ball bags. There still wasn't the explosion of balls yet. So I would go to the bowl. I took 2 balls with me. I took a blue hammer and a red hammer. And, I basically just bowled with the blue hammers. You break the lane down and you move with the lanes for 3 hours. I probably bowled somewhere between 12 and 15 games, and some days a little bit more than that. And every shot I threw, it didn't strike as much. So, you shoot 210, 220, 230, you're shooting more spares. You're shooting 10 pins and 7 pins, and you throw some through the nose. And every shot I threw, I tried to throw it good. I tried to shoot the spare, and, I worked. It became mentally really good for me because it made me work for 3 hours on every shot. I didn't lose focus. I was in a bowl pretty much. It was a 44 lane center, and I was usually down on lanes 1 through 8 somewhere, and there was nobody else in the bowl except on the other end of the bowl, and nobody bothered me. And I literally was by myself for 3 hours, and it really helped. I just stayed pretty focused. I just bowl. I did not mind bowling. So game after game after game after game, I tried to score well, and I tried to make every spare I shot. And so when it equated to tournament bowling, a 6-game block seemed really easy on tour because it was so mentally, it did not drain me to bowl 6 games in 3 hours. It was real easy. So I think bowling all those games really helped me mentally.
Yeah.
So
do you we're gonna get into your career, but do you still get recognized? Do you ever get people when you're in a bowling alley? Oh my gosh, you're Bryan Goebel. I watched you when I was whatever. Does anybody ever come up to you and recognize?
once in a while, not it not as much as it did anymore. I'm old now, and there's a few generations that have slipped by now. So most of the younger kids in my area, yes. When I leave my area, not much. So
No.
it just depends. Most of the young guys on tour, I'd say about 80%. I bowled 2 stops last winter in Springfield, Missouri, and Wichita, Kansas, and I would say 80% of the bowlers knew who I was.
Yep.
But there's about 20% of them that have no clue who I am. So,
oh gosh,
I remember when I was 28, and I knew who most of the bowlers were because I was watching it on TV all the time. So I knew them all, and that was pretty cool. But not everybody's had access to the same kind of wide world of sports that we had growing up, or that I had growing up when it was so popular. So late in the 90s and early 2000s, bowling took a hit, and it was harder to follow on TV, and you just didn't see it was harder to follow it, and it's harder to keep up with people unless you were actually a bowler.
Right. Why would why would anybody watch somebody roll a ball at white objects? I mean, I hate that. But I mean, that was the problem. Like, who wants to watch somebody bowl? I mean, unless you're one of us, like you said. I mean, I live for it. Like you said something about Bob Glass giving you his his time, and that was like $1 million to you. This podcast, with this conversation that we're having, is like $1 million to me because I've seen you do great things. And the fact, when I was a kid, I And when I went to my first tournament in Milford, Connecticut in 99 US Open. I'm sure you bowled that tournament. But when I was there, I literally looked at everybody like they were 10 feet tall and bigger than the world, because when I'm watching bowling on TV, it's like a kid watching a cartoon. You know, these pro bowlers aren't real. You know, I'm never going to meet one of them. And, you know, it's just like, and then in, 9 years later, I'm meeting like Couch and Learn and Wiseman and all these great guys. And like, when I first start watching bowling, I don't know the significance of, when you came out on tour, I'm sure I saw you bowl. I know the very first time I saw you bowl was in Denver at the Celebrity Denver Open with Parker, Mike Shady, John Mazza, Curtis Odom. And, that was the first time I remember ever seeing you throw a ball. And, I did not know the significance of Bryan Goebel or who else. And now it's like you guys are my friends now. And I pinch myself every day.
Well, one good thing about bowling is, for the most part, most guys are pretty normal guys. I mean, in my era, back in the 90s and everything, bowling was really popular, and it was fun back then. We had having 30 tournaments a year, and you could take a week or two off because you were out there most of the year. And so, most of the guys were kind of had that family relationship. You know how you fight, but you're still family. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we're out there every week. We're all competing for the same money. We're all individuals. So we're mad at each other one minute when he's doing something that's bothering me. But then when we're all done and we're in the locker room, we're joking around and we're friends. So,
Right.
and you do things with some guys, and you try to get along with people, and you get on each other's nerves, and then and you don't see each other for a month, and then you start back up the next year and everybody's friends again. And it's a lot of fun there. And I think that for the most part, I've never felt like a huge star of any kind ever. So it's never bothered me when people come up to me and talk to me at all. And I enjoy it, because I can't even imagine what it would be like to be Pete Weber or Norm Duke or Walter Ray Williams, because those, they're and even Parker, they're so much greater than anybody else. People recognize them everywhere they go. They don't even have to be in a bowling center and they get recognized. And I can't even imagine what life would be like that. I know several situations where, Pete Weber's a good friend of mine, and we get along really well. And I've seen people walk up to him and ask him for his autograph when they should not be asking him for his autograph at that moment. And I feel bad for him, when he's taking a bite of food and somebody walks up and sticks a pen and paper in his face when he's taking a bite of food, asking for an autograph at a restaurant, not in the bowling center.
Yep.
And you feel he's been in the bathroom before.
Oh no.
And somebody has come up behind him asking him for his autograph. That's just not right. I mean, that's a big star. I can't imagine being somebody like Michael Jordan or somebody like that. You can't have a public life. And Pete's famous. I mean, he's such a good guy when you catch him. He's an emotional bowler. He's so into his bowling. So, if he's not bowling well, he's mad because he wants to win. And if you catch him right after that, he's mad. So, you just have to take it with a grain of salt. He wants to win everything he bowls.
Right. Absolutely. Now, excuse me. Geez. Hand on my heart, to me, you're a big star. And, so just
so you know, I am hard of hearing. So I
no,
I'm talking loud.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Yeah. Okay. What would you say is your best moment on tour?
Well, my best moment on tour probably was winning Peoria when I shot the 296. Yeah. Because I had won 2 titles at that point, but I hadn't won in 2 years. And you'd won 2 titles, and now you didn't get to go. You went to 2 Tournament of Champions, and and that was a big deal. And then all of a sudden you didn't get to go for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And so, or at least 1 year, I didn't get to go for 1 year. And then all of a sudden, you're in a position to win this. It wasn't a major, but the Winter Tour in '94 was such a high paying tour. All those stops paid so well. There was so much hype on ABC that it was a big deal to win any of those events. And to watch Norm Duke break all the records that he broke that week. And then I tied for 24th and had to have a roll off that week just to make the top 24. And I won the roll off. So I got in. So I started in 24th place, and I climbed the ladder and qualified 3rd for the show. And I'm obviously in the record books from going from 24th to 1st that week. And there's several people who have done it, but to bowl Norm and to throw the front 11, I had to throw. He shot 280, and I had to get up and throw the first shot in the 10th, and I did. And that was probably the best shot I've ever thrown in my career. I'll say that it was the best shot I ever threw in my entire career for the strike for the win. And I threw the 11th shot. I hadn't thought about much of all. When I got ready to throw the 12th ball, everything hit me.
Oh no!
That it was for $200,000. There was so much on the line. I didn't throw a good shot, and that's okay because I was just happy to win again. I mean, winning felt so good that week. I mean, it was a good week to win. And I remember that tournament more than I mean, winning the Tournament of Champions was a great win, but I did not have a good year that year. In fact, I had left Ebonite after the winter because I went 0 for 6. I took the summer off. I ended up bowling 3 tournaments in the summer, and I came back out that fall throwing a little bit of everything and didn't really do very well. And went 0 for 4 in the tournament right before the Tournament of Champions in Wichita. I finished 25th, or 26th. I think I was almost alternate, but I got a check. So it was basically the second check I'd gotten that year. Second check I'd gotten that year out of 10 events, and it was a horrible year. And the next stop was in Kansas City for the Tournament of Champions, and I won. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine. I mean, it was incredible, but it was not a great year. So to win that tournament and win a major like that was out of the blue to me. I mean, I had worked hard that year, but it came out of the blue, in my opinion. So it's tough which one of those is the bigger tournament? Well, winning Peoria winning my 3rd title kind of solidifies a lot of things. Winning 3 is no longer a fluke. You won 3 titles. It can't be a fluke anymore. It can't be all lucky. It's got to be something there. So I don't know. That's a tough question to answer, but those two tournaments are both standout tournaments for me. But winning Peoria was something special.
Yeah, sure, totally get that. What would you say you might have already covered it, but what would you say is your worst moment on tour?
Well, bad moments for me on tour. Well, actually, I would have to say, probably the worst moment on tour was walking out of the last tournament and in the spring of 2004 when I did not make the top 50 in points. And so therefore my career was now over. Mm-hmm. As far as I knew, it was now over. And that was probably the worst moment of my life. I wasn't ready to be done bowling on tour. Mm-hmm. And the tour said, "Oh, you're not top 50. Sorry, you're out." And that was probably the worst moment in my career.
Yeah. Who had your number on TV or in match play during your career?
Well, honestly, I don't know if I bowled anybody enough for that they had my number on TV. I had a pretty good record. I made 31 TV shows. I won 10 times. I only finished second twice. So I was 10-2 in title matches. And the only 2 losses I had was to Walter Ray Williams in 93 when he won 7 titles. And the next year, after beating Norm Duke, 2 weeks later, I bowled him again, and he beat me, and he was player of the year that year. So those are my only 2 losses in title matches. So nobody really, I mean, I don't know of anybody that ever beat me twice on TV. So I was 2-0 against Pete Weber on TV back in the day. And I was 2-1 against Omletto. And those were, and I was 1-1 against Walter and 2-2 against Norm. So if it was just everyday match play, and I bowled a lot of match plays, I had Del Ballard's number. He hated to bowl me in match play because he could not, no matter how bad I was bowling, I shot a big game against him. And Tony Westlake had my number in match play. I mean, I didn't care. He could have shot 150 5 games in a row, and he would have shot 300 against me the next game. So, and you know, match play was something we saw. You know, I made 15 finals a year, and you're bowling a lot of the same guys over and over and over again every week. So, you know, I saw those guys. Tony had my number in match play. I couldn't beat him if my life depended on it, but Del couldn't beat me.
Yeah.
So,
so all right. All right. So you win in 98, and then, okay, you go through 99, 2000, you make a show at the Orleans, and, you know, and then, you know, you're 2002, you win your 10th title. But after you won in 98, did you think, okay, that's probably going to be my last title?
Well, actually, when I won that tournament, I'd really started throwing the ball good again. And so I came out in 1999, and I led the very first tournament of the year was in Reno, and it was the touring senior doubles.
Right.
And I led the singles. And the guy that I can't remember who I bowled with that led the seniors, but we got hooked together, and he could not carry a 10-pin the entire finals. He got 9 every shot. And I bowled really well. I was high man in the tournament, and we qualified 6th and just missed the show. And obviously from there, I thought I was going to have a really good year, and I did not have a bad year, but I never made a show. And making shows really enhances your years because of the incentive money and everything else. So by not making a show, you know, I made money, but you didn't make it wasn't a fabulous year because there just wasn't any extra money. And not winning a title was sad. I didn't like that. So then 2000 began to become, the PBA got bought, and everything began to change in 2000. They started changing the formats where you had to be quicker out of the gate. You had to be quicker, or you didn't even make cuts. And that's not how I bowled. I was so used to a slow pace, 3 6-game blocks. You know, I could stay even for 2 blocks and then go drill something and hit the last block and make the final. And all of a sudden that didn't exist anymore. And that wasn't the way I wasn't very good at that. And so in 2000, making one show was a good thing. They put 7 guys on there, or I wouldn't have made it. But it was an up down year, make a few cashes. It was like a 50% year. And I really did, at that point in 2000, I began to believe that I would never win again. And then the new PBA decided to establish a new rule for the Hall of Fame, whereas they never had a number. They suddenly said you had to have 10 wins or you can't get in. And at this point, it was real depressing because there's probably six or 7 guys in there that don't have 10 titles. I mean, you know, Ernie Schlegel got in with 8. Gary Dickinson in there with 8. One major, never player of the year. They were in there with 8. Dave Ferraro got 9 wins. I don't think he ever got his 10th. He may have I don't remember if he had 10, and now all of a sudden here I am with 9 and a Tournament of Champions win, and I can't get in without 2 majors or 10 wins. And at this point, I did not think I was probably ever going to win, and now obviously I can't get in. It's not a matter of not being voted in. I can't get in. The rule just changed. I can't get in. So really, that was hard to take, and I didn't want to quit. I worked hard to try to, but now guys like Tommy Jones were coming on the scene, and guys that were hooking the ball with a lot more power now, and the game was changing. And so when I didn't make another show until I bowled the fall of 2002 and almost quit. I went home. I went home at the end. We had 10 tournaments in the fall and 10 in the spring. I went home after those 10, and I thought that was it. I didn't even think I was going to go out in 2003, but I worked a lot, and I thought, well, I'll finish out 2003. So the first stop was up in Seattle, and I didn't cash. And the second tournament was Medford, and I won it. And that came out of the blue. And to win that tournament and win my 10th title, I can't even, I can't, it's another one of those moments where it makes an old man cry, because I didn't think that tournament was ever going to happen.
So. That's what I saw. And now that's one of my favorite tournaments.
I'll tell you this too, though. This is funny. The PBA had five patterns at that time, and one of them was called the Shark.
Yep.
And the Shark was opening up the gutter. The gutter, you couldn't throw it in the gutter. It hooked off the gutter. The other four, to me, played identical. The guys that hooked the ball claimed they didn't, but they all played identical to me, and I had no chance. So Medford, they put out this Shark. I couldn't throw the ball in the gutter, and I had a feeling as we progressed that tournament, I had so much confidence throwing the ball, knowing that I couldn't throw this ball in the gutter, and my hand got relaxed, and I got better and better. And when we started the match play, I lost my first game and then won 4 straight to win the best 4 of 7, and then I won 3 straight in the best 3 out of 5 against Del Ballard, and then I won 3 straight against Mike Wolf. So I won 10 straight games to make the show. So I was really high qualifier on the show. And then to win that tournament, barely beat Dave Traber, but then shot 250 at Danny Wiseman. So I never thought PBA, after that year was over, changed that shot so that shot never existed again. I think they did it because of me.
Well, no. So here's the thing.
They said, we can't put out that easy of a shot for Goebel again.
No, not to correct somebody who was there. That was on pattern E. That was on now what they call Cheetah.
Yeah, I know, but the gutter never hooked ever again in my career. I never bowled another tournament where the gutter hooked like that again. That was so great. I love that. And you just don't see that anymore. So I think they took it away on purpose.
Nah. Well, so when watching that through my eyes, I saw a lot of your emotion that you were showing was like a lot of relief, a lot of, oh my gosh, it felt like it was very gratifying to you, because you just, it was like, man, I still got it,
Well, it gave me that feeling, at least for the week. It was something that tournament, like I said, it more or less caught me out of the blue. I wasn't scoring in the tournaments well enough to win against the guys that were on tour and that were, Robert Smith and Tommy Jones and those kind of guys. Wes Malott was coming on the scene. Those guys were powerful bowlers that were out there. And I looked like I was throwing a marshmallow compared to those guys at this time. So to win the tournament at that point was, I'm going to say it would compare to, I got to see Mark Roth win title number 34 after years of not, winning again. And I was friends with him, and what a great thing that was. And then I got to commentate and take Marshall Holman's place and be the commentator on the show when Marshall won his 22nd title that he probably thought was never going to happen. So I got to witness both of those two guys win a title long after their career basically was over. And I know what that felt like to win number 10, 5 years later, after you feel like you're all washed up and you're on the edge of calling it quits. And so winning that in the end of January in 2003, And in April of 2004, you're being told, you're done, Bryan. You didn't make the top 50. See you later.
Mm-hmm.
I just won my 10th title last year. I'm sorry, pal. See you later. You're done. Talk about an emotional swing from winning that title and just tears rolling down my face. 10th title, unbelievable feeling, to 14 months later being told, see you later. Go home. You're done. You can't bowl anymore.
No,
you're not very good, Bryan.
No.
That's a roller coaster ride.
So, all right. So you make the show. Hold on. You make the show in 2005 at the TFC. Now I know that you got the call. Yeah. I mean, how did I know you probably talked about it, but how did you get to to even bowl the TFC? Is it because you were still on the list because of Medford? What was that week like, and what was it like to actually make the show?
Well, at that point in time, I was kind of I decided, first of all, after missing the cut in 04, in the fall of 04, I went home bowl league, and I was probably bad mouthing the PBA every day of my life. Yeah. So I decided, what was I going to do? I wasn't working, and what am I going to do now? So I decided that in 05, I would have to rabbit if I bowled anything except the majors. So why not just go bowl the majors? So I decided to go bowl the 4 major tournaments plus the Masters. Mm-hmm. I guess that was the 4 majors. So I went to, first one I think was the Masters, and it was in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. So I go to New Jersey and I finished 25th. So I can't bowl on tour, but I finished 25th in the U.S. Open. I'm sorry, it was the U.S. Open. So I finished 25th. I finished alternate at the U.S. Open, and I can't bowl on tour. So that's pretty good. I'll take that check. The next tournament was the Tournament of Champions. So you go there and you're kind of thinking, well, hey, guys, I don't see these guys every day anymore because I'm not on tour anymore. But I know them all, so they're friends with me. So I was just, I figured, well, I'm just here for the fun of it because obviously I can't bowl on tour. And the format, there was no qualifying. It was all just match play. So the first match I bowl, I think it came down to the wire, and it was a best 2 out of 3, and I won. So then I'm bowling Pat.
Healy.
His name is left-hander, Patrick Allen.
Patrick Allen. Yep.
And so Patrick beats me the first 2 games, and he's player of the year. He's on fire. I mean, I've got beat the first 2 games, so it's the best 3 out of 5. So I'm going home after this, and I beat him the next game, and then I beat him the next game, and then I beat him the next game, and so I beat him, and it's like, wow. And how does that happen? And I think it was because I was fairly loose, because I had nothing to lose. I had nothing to lose, so I make the show, and wow, that was just. I came out of the blue. So I really only bowled, what I bowl 5 against him and 3 and another 5. I guess I can't remember who else I bowled, but so I bowled 13 games. I make the show. It wasn't very many games. And here I am on the show. So I felt pretty lucky. But then I got to thinking, as soon as I made the show, it's like, wow, there's only 4 of us on that show. And I'm bowling Steve Jaros, and he's, Randy had to bowl Norm, and I don't want to bowl Randy or Norm. My God, those guys are Hall of Famers. So I'd rather be bowling Steve Jaros. Like, goodness, I get to bowl Steve. I got a chance to win this tournament and get back on tour. Mm-hmm. And of course, Steve goes on to win the tournament. So good for Steve. He was the underdog on that show, and that was great to see him win that show. But obviously, I only shot 180 something that match, and. But it was a little dejecting because I had got my hopes up by making the show that I could do it. I really felt like I could do it. I felt like I could win that. And I didn't. So back home I go. But I did go after that tournament. I went and bowled. I bowled the World Open or the World Championship, and I finished 26th. And then I bowled the Masters, and I made the top 64. So I bowled 2 tournaments. I bowled the very last stop that was in Owasso down by Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was only 4 hours from my house. So I bowled the rabbit. I did not make it. I was mad. I finished like 6th. They only took like 4 guys. And so then I bowled in basically Omaha on the Council Bluffs, Iowa was the first stop in the fall. And I made it out of that rabbit. And so I bowled that tournament. So I only bowled 6 stops and I made 5. I mean, I got paid 5 out of the 6 tournaments I bowled, but I wasn't good enough to be in the top 50 and bowl on tour. So it was actually a good feeling. But at the end of the year, after the Masters, enough was enough. I told my wife, I'm not going to do this. So I called it quits after that.
Okay.
So I felt like I should have still been on tour.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. My gosh. I mean, the way you throw the ball, and I understand that, people throw the ball, I say the way you throw the ball. I mean, anybody could get hot on any day, but I mean, the way you threw it, I mean, it just seemed like you were always there because of, like if, if I needed a shot and you were on my team, I would, I'd almost give you the ball because you're such a straight down and in player, and they say it all the time, straighter is greater.
I've always prided myself on being able to get to the pocket a lot, and I think that's why I get paid a lot. Now I don't always strike, but I can get to the pocket, and I learned that from Bob Glass, because man, that guy hit the pocket every shot he threw, it seems like. But also it's why I credit Walter Ray Williams for I think he's the greatest bowler of all time, because I've never seen anybody just throw the ball in the pocket every single shot. Every single, I mean, I watched him bowl all 16 years on tour, and the guy, I don't remember him ever missing the pocket. He did, but I mean, he just stuff it in the pocket, and he led so many tournaments because he's just the greatest bowler of all. Nobody wants to be a straight player like Walter, even though he's the greatest player of all time. But Derek, I wanted to say one thing though. I will tell you this: I believe in God, and I believe all things happen for a reason. And when I called it quits in 05, after bowling those tournaments in 05 and deciding to come home, I was not happy about it. And I thought the PBA did me wrong. But my daughter was getting ready to start high school, and she played volleyball and basketball and softball while she was in high school. And I never missed a game. And I believe that it happens if I would have stayed on tour, I would not have gotten to see all of that. And that was the greatest part of my life, was watching my daughter go through high school, playing all those sports. And so it would have never happened if I wouldn't have gotten ousted from tour. So in hindsight, after it was all over, I was actually glad it happened.
Yeah. So, does she bowl? Did she bowl? Does she bowl now?
She bowled until she was 11. She had the greatest form in the world, but she threw it straight. But she picked up her spares, and she was averaging 165 at 11 years old, throwing straight balls. And she quit because her girlfriend's bowling was uncool. But her senior year in high school, the bowling coach at her high school knew me and talked her into bowling her senior year. And so she bowled on the team her senior year, and the team was pretty good, but they didn't make it to state. But she made it individually to state, and she went to state and finished, I think she finished 8th or something like that, maybe 10th. I can't remember exactly what spot she finished, but she finished like 10th in state individually. That's awesome. That was the only year she bowled in high school. So,
are you the only one in your family with a 300?
Yes.
Okay.
In my family.
Right. Between you and
my mom bowls. She's about a 145, 150 average bowler. My brother quit when he was 14. My daughter doesn't bowl. My daughter has 3 kids, so I have 3 grandkids. She had to give up bowling when she had the kids. She hasn't bowled. She's a good bowler, but she had to give it up. Yep. So I'm really the only one in my family that bowls.
Oh, there you go.
So my sister was a pretty good bowler. Doesn't have a 300 though.
Oh, okay. Adam's a pretty big PBA super fan. He wanted to know what it was. I know we talked about it. What was it like to bowl with the best on tour, and how cool was it to bowl on ABC Sports back in the day?
Well, actually, tell him this is how I feel. Adam, was it?
Yeah, yeah.
Adam, I'll tell you this. For me, it was the coolest experience of my life. I wouldn't have changed a thing. Bowling, I had the feeling that I was ever in the category that, of the Hall of Fame. I mean, I'm in the Hall of Fame. I don't feel like a Hall of Famer. I've watched so many great bowlers and got to bowl with so many guys that I witnessed do so many great things with a bowling ball. It was a little overwhelming. Walter Ray, I got when I first came back out, Earl Anthony was still out there. So I got to bowl against Earl and Dick Weber. And I saw some of those, some of the greatest bowl, Marshall Holman and Mark Roth, and then Walter Ray and Norm Duke and Pete Weber and Parker Bone and Brian Voss and Amleto Monticelli. And the names go on and on. Dave Husted, Steve Cook, so many great bowlers I watched and I bowled against. And I never thought I was anywhere close to as good as those guys were. And they were phenomenal bowlers, and it was so much fun every week. I looked forward to competing against those guys every week. So I look forward to it every year. I never really was ever sad about being on tour. It never got me down or depressed. I liked being out there. I liked bowling against those guys. I miss my family a lot. And luckily for me, my wife came out and saw me a lot, and my daughter came with her. And I loved bowling out there. It was a lot of fun. Those guys are so incredible. They were so incredible. Phenomenal bowl against those guys.
Yeah. Is there a difference between an ABC telecast and an ESPN telecast, or is it just different?
Yeah, there was. ABC was, well, I'll tell you this. It was for me because I grew up watching ABC Wide World of Sports. And in the 70s, ESPN didn't exist. So there was no ESPN. So there was only ABC Wide World of Sports, and bowling was so popular. I mean, it was the most popular show on TV. So, when I got out there, ABC in the winter tour with Chris Schenkel out there and Bo Burton was a staple. And man, making a show and all the lights and the glamour that came with ABC was pretty phenomenal. ESPN set up pretty cool when they tried to be as much, but that there weren't as many bowlers in the tournaments. They weren't packed every week. But the shows were still pretty cool, but it wasn't quite the same thing. But TV was TV. So the intensity on ESPN wasn't quite as good as it was on ABC. So that made a difference. But, a show was a show. And when you make a show, you have a chance to win. So ABC was a bigger deal, and it was really sad. It obviously went away after 96. That was the last season we bowled on ABC, and that was sad. So 97 was all ESPN, and I think the ratings took a beating. It was hard. So it wasn't a big a deal.
What was it like to interact with Denny Schreiner and Mike Durbin, Chris Schenkel and Bo Burton? I mean, how good of guys are they?
Actually, Mike Durbin was real businesslike to me. I don't think I was ever real close with Mike Durbin. We were businesslike around each other. Denny Schreiner was real down to earth. He liked bowling a lot. He seemed to enjoy being there. He was fun to talk to. And he had a few stories about golf and stuff because he had done other things. So he was fun to talk to. He was a down to earth guy. So,
how about Chris and Bo? Are they?
Well, Chris, you didn't get to talk to Chris much because he'd show up late. Not late, but he wouldn't show up until it was down to the TV. So most guys would be gone, and he was a nice guy to talk to, and he would gladly talk to you if you talked to him. But he had a lot of camera crews around him and people talking to him. So you didn't get to talk to him much. Bo, for some reason, and I always thought Bo was really cool. I thought he was obviously a great bowler, and I liked him a lot. And he took a liking to me during the team challenges, if you remember those things. He came to Kansas City one time and we got to talking, and he seemed to have taken a liking to me, and we became pretty good friends whenever I saw him. And I liked him a lot. He was easy to talk to, and anytime he was around, we talked. And I liked Bo a lot. I haven't seen him in a long time, but I like Bo a lot.
Kind of off the sheet and kind of for fun, I was going to ask you this off the air, but do you have anything to do with Goebel Light beer?
No, I've got Goebel beer.
Yeah.
No, I've got a few signs here in my basement for Goebel beer. I wish I knew some, but I have no relation, nothing to do with it. It was fun having, it's not like a name Miller. There's a lot of people I know named Miller have a beer named after him, but to name have a beer like with the name Goebel, that's pretty cool. So not too many people even know about Goebel beer because it was kind of a cheap beer. So
okay, here's how I have a memory like that's longer than it should be, and the very first World Team Challenge I watched, it was Goebel. One of the teams was Goebel Light, and I can't remember if I think Mike Lee and Quentin Green were on there. I can't remember. They were on one of the teams or whatever. But that's at what 9 years old, 10 years old, 11, whatever. That's how I remember. I never forgot Goebel Light, and so I just I just had to ask. But yeah, no.
It's fun. It's fun having a beer. Although they quit making it, I bought a couple of cases of the stuff in Detroit. So just to have it, even though they went out of business. So
that's awesome. So one of the questions was when you got on when you left the tour, you said you left the tour in 2005, right?
Yeah, after 2005.
After 2005, okay. What was a PBA rule that you agree with?
Actually, one of them that I was instrumental in helping to make to this day is if you bowl on the wrong lane to start a game and you don't strike, you have to keep the frame. And if you strike, you have to bowl it over. I'm the one that came up with that idea in our tournament committee back in the 90s, and the tournament committee passed it. And that rule exists. I came up with that. I was tired of people bowling on the wrong lane and getting rewarded when they threw a big split. They get to bowl it over. Yep. And so I was so glad to see that rule put into play. I like that rule. That way it stops guys from cheating. I mean, if they are bowling on the wrong lane on purpose, it stops them from cheating. So it wasn't meant to hurt anybody or penalize anybody. I thought it was a really fair rule.
Mm-hmm. What was a PBA rule that you didn't agree with?
A PBA rule that I didn't agree with. Probably. I don't know if it still exists. I like all the rules the PBA has in play because I like fairness. I like the bowl tournaments knowing that everything is fair. It's just a matter of me beating him. So the rule the PBA had for a while about not allowing you to go bowl something if it was somewhere in your region and you wanted to go bowl something else somewhere else, so you couldn't go bowl without a permission and stuff. I understand why they did it, but I didn't like it when they controlled. I had to choose I couldn't choose what tournament I wanted to bowl in the PBA. I had to bowl the thing that was closest to me in my PBA region. Sense?
Yeah.
That one kind of bothered me because I had people wanting me to come bowl another tournament. I couldn't go bowl it.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking Thursday and you were talking about USBC, and I was telling you that I feel like the USBC punishes professional bowlers because of their professional status. If you want to bowl something with your family or what, like I think it was what Parker couldn't bowl with his kids or Barnes couldn't bowl with his kids because they were pros. I hated that because looking at you now, it's Bryan Goebel, Derek Michaud. If you didn't know who's Bryan Goebel, was he a pro? Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, just looking at the person, I feel like the person was being punished for their accomplishments.
I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but one thing that really has bothered me over the years was that the ABC and the USBC were there for league bowlers across America. That's what they were there for. They weren't designed to run a tournament nationally. It's not what they were there for. They were there for league bowlers. So when they have this tournament every year at nationals for all their league bowlers, I think that if you're a league bowler and you pay dues, you should be allowed to come bowl that tournament. Now, who you can bowl with and who you can't, that stinks too, because if my team has 2 or 3 pros on it at home, it's a scratch tournament out there. So if you're going to make it a scratch tournament, who cares? I mean, so they unfortunately they kind of shot themselves in the foot, because it's supposed to be an amateur game. It's not professional. The USBC is not professional. So first of all, we're bowling for money in that tournament. So why is it an amateur tournament and money? Because quite frankly, this is the only sport in America that you can be an amateur and make money in a tournament. There is no other sport where you can do that. You can't go play a golf tournament as an amateur and make any money whatsoever, not legally. And you can't go play any other sport anywhere and make money as an amateur. So in bowling, for some reason, they allow you to be called an amateur and go make more money than the professionals are making. So first of all, since you can do that, there's no reason for the USBC to go out and say, oh, well, we can't let these 2 professionals bowl together, even though these 2 amateurs over here, who are both averaging 240 at home, bowling every amateur tournament in the world, they can bowl together. That doesn't make much sense to me. They bowl for money too. I should be able to bowl with whoever I want to bowl with too. So that bothers me a lot. But more than anything, I think I told you, Derek, I don't worry about it. I'm old now. So I'm
only 35. Knock it off.
I'm past the point of worrying about small things like that. But when I was 28, 29, and I was on tour, when I came home, I loved bowling with my teammates. And every time I was home, I never missed a league night. I bowled. And even though I only probably got in about a third or 40% of the league season, I bowled when I was home. So my team wanted to go to the nationals, and I've always gone with them. I wanted to go with them. And the USBC said, or the ABC said, no, you can't. You're a professional touring 1 player. You can't go bowl with your team. I pay my dues. I bowl league. I want to bowl with my team. And they wouldn't let me. That rule was the stinkiest rule I've ever heard. I don't care what they can say anything they want to, but that was for league bowlers. That tournament was designed for league bowlers. I was a league bowler. I should have been able to go bowl with my team. Period.
So let me ask you a dangerous question. You do not have to answer it. Do you think the ABC and WIBC should merge? Should just come back and USBC split up, or what do you think?
Honestly, Derek, I'm gonna say that I have no opinion about that. I really don't. I don't like to be. I have never liked to be controversial. I don't like that. Something like that is. It really isn't none of my business. I don't care one way or the other. It doesn't affect me one way or the other.
Gotcha. What was not a PBA rule that should have been?
Not a rule that should have been. That's a tough one. I don't know that I never, half the time I didn't even know the rules. I always just, I honestly never even, I never really read the rule books. I just kind of figured, well, that can't be right. So that's got to be a rule. Isn't that a rule? You can't do that, can you? Oh, you can do that? I didn't know that. That's how I was my whole life. So I didn't ever really stop and think about it too much. If somebody told me, oh no, you got to get that pin out of the gutter before you throw that ball. So, or else it's a 0 or something. It's like, oh, really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, get the pin out of the gutter then. So I don't know. I really didn't put much stock in it.
That's all right. So when I created this, when I interviewed Parker, I was like, geez, I'd never really sat down and interviewed a pro bowler. I don't want to do it just blank without any questions, because I don't want to be all fanboy about, oh my God, but I wrote down these questions and I was like, just whatever. What, then they came to me. What's a PBA rule you agree with? Disagree with? What's not a rule that should be? And the reason I ask every pro these same questions, because if you watch every podcast, it's the same questions, because the answer is different from you than somebody else. So,
It
you
makes
never.
sense. Hey, it makes sense. And not only that, I came up with one, a rule that should exist. No left-handers can bowl in the PBA.
Oh God, Parker, I hope you're not watching this.
No,
I love it.
that's my only rule. I listen, I've been beat up by Jason Couch and Parker and Mazza and I can't even tell you how many left-handers have beat me up over the years. So that's my only rule. No, I'm kidding. They're
No,
great
no,
guys.
you're good. I know you're.
I don't like bowling them. I can tell you that. I don't like bowling them.
Well, listen, if Jason Couch beats you a lot, he's just taking it out on you because Parker beats him a lot. So I mean, hey,
If I can I tell you one story this is a great story. I love this story. In 1990, my second year back out on tour, in the winter tour, the U.S. Open, Earl Anthony never won the U.S. Open. Okay, he won 2 of the 3 major, in a Masters, but he never won the U.S. Open. So we're bowling the U.S. Open, and it was at the very end of his career. So he makes the finals at the 1990 U.S. Open, and I make that finals. It's the only finals I ever made that I bowled Earl Anthony head-to-head in. And Earl Anthony, when I bowled him, I'm playing 4th arrow, and Earl Anthony is playing 4th arrow. Believe it or not, he shoots 279 at me playing 4th arrow. How many times have you ever seen Earl Anthony playing 4th arrow?
No,
the only time I ever saw him do it. He bowled me, shot 279. I shot 258. And he beat me. That's the only time I ever bowled Earl in match play head to head. And he shot 279 at me. That was the greatest thing in the world. I think Earl's one of the greatest bowlers of all time. And that was really cool story to get to tell people that I got to bowl him one time and he shot 279 playing 4th arrow at me. That's pretty cool.
Wait, so he's standing on our side of the lane, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay,
that's the tournament where I finished. I don't know. I finished. Ron Palumbi won, and it was worth $400,000 or whatever he made for that, or whatever the prize. He made $80,000 for that tournament or whatever.
Wow.
So it was a cool tournament. But I see Earl Anthony was a very cool guy. I'm sad that he passed away when he did. He was a very great guy. So
where were you when you found that out?
Huh?
Where were you when you found that out? The reason I ask you is because I want to tell you where I was. I was watching Sports Center, and Sports Center never covers bowling. And I'm like, all of a sudden I see Earl Anthony, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then, and then they show the year of birth and the year, and then his death year, and I was like, I couldn't believe it.
I can't remember exactly where I was at, but the tournament director at the time was Johnny Campos.
Right.
And we were friends, and we were somewhere. And that day it happened. I found out that night. I mean, I knew that day. I had heard. I mean, it was big news in the bowling world real fast. And that was sad. That was really sad.
Oh, it was awful.
So,
I mean, that was awful. And then, Dick Weber passing when he did, I mean,
oh, and Dick, Dick was running the Midwest region for a while, so I got to know Dick really well. And I will, one funny thing, Pete Weber and I are friends, and we have nothing in common. I don't think we have anything in common, and we've been friends. The very first regional I ever bowled was in Belleville, Illinois, at St. Clair Bowl, and Bob Glass and another guy from the area and I were going to go room together and bowl this regional. It was going to be my first one I'd ever bowled. Both of them had bowled them before, but I really didn't know any pro bowlers. And so I drove down with a guy named Dick Stevens. We parked in the parking lot and we were coming in. It was Friday for the practice session. And I'm walking in the bowl with this guy, and Pete Weber is walking out of the bowl. And he knew, the guy I was with, Dick Stevens, knew Pete really well. He introduced me to Pete. So Pete Weber was the first I really ever met. And I met him. I shook his hand. We talked for a second, and he walked away. And we've been friends ever since. And we have nothing in common. But we've always been. Whenever we see each other, we're friends. We've always known each other. We've played golf together. We've done a lot of things together. And I mean, I've just known him forever. But yet, we're not super close or anything like that. It's just funny that we've been friends for a long time. He was the first guy I really ever met. So
first pro I ever met was Ozio. And
who?
Ozio.
Oh, David.
Yeah. And that was on May 9, 93 at Heritage Bowling Center. Man, I gave
David a title. I threw a 6 count on my last shot in Rochester, and Mark McDowell shot 158 the next game. And if I don't throw that 6, all I had to get was 9, and I beat Ozio, and he was player. Everything was going his way that year. Yeah. He called me Goebelstein all the time. He said I never spent any money. I haven't seen David in 20 years, but he's a good guy.
Oh, he's
I haven't seen him in a long time.
Yeah. No, he's a fantastic. I've never thrown a strike in front of him. I don't know why.
Man, he was good in the clutch.
Oh yeah,
he was good in the clutch.
How was it being on the Wichita show when Mike Albee did what he did?
When he shot the 300 to 279.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I lost to Ricky Ward the first game on that show, and he shot 279 at me. So I know what the shot was like. But that was something else. I thought I had a good look too. I don't know if I missed the pocket that game. I only shot 200. I had a 7-10 split, I think, and I don't know. I didn't carry like everybody else seemed to carry that day, but that was something else. And Mike Albee, you mentioned him, probably the nicest guy in the game of bowling. I don't think there is a nicer guy in the game of bowling. I don't know if you met him before, but he is truly the nicest guy I've ever met in my life.
He's been on.
Oh, I don't know if there is a nicer guy in the world.
Yeah. No, I'll send you that interview. He's been on this show, and I messaged him a couple times on Facebook. First time I messaged him, I was, I didn't get a response. I'm like, he might not be interested. But I was like, screw it. I'll just send him another one. And he's like, yeah, absolutely, I'll do it. And then he sends me an email, and he did it. He didn't have any visual, because I don't think he's tech savvy or whatever, which is fine. But no, that was a lot of fun to chat with him. And like I said, when I started this podcast, I thought I was going to get 2 yeses. The people that have said yes to me that I'm shocked by, and I pinch myself. I'm like, you guys can do whatever you want with your time, but you're going to give me some of your time. I am grateful. And, and it was just, I can't believe, the people that I've talked to because of this. And I've talked to Mike. I've talked to Norm. Norm was my quickest yes. I messaged him on his fan page, and I told him about this podcast. He says, yep, here's my number, and, keep in touch and let me know. And, I talked to Norm and Adam Colton on the same night. I mean, this podcast has been just so fun to do. What would you say is your favorite PBA tour stop?
It has to be Tucson, without much doubt.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I love playing golf there. I like playing in the, we always went there in the summer, and it was 110 degrees, and I played in the afternoon for $35. That was cheap. I was all relaxed. No wonder I won 3 times there. I think I made 4 shows there, maybe.
Yeah.
4 shows or something like that. I love that place.
Did you ever lose there? No, I'm just
kidding.
Nah. Okay, so if you're bowling when it's 100 degrees outside, I know you're not bowling outside, but if it's 110 degrees outside, it's got to be pretty hot inside. I mean, I'm sure they had AC. Do you have a lot of tape in your thumb hole, or do you have what do you do when it's really hot?
Well, it's different between then and it is now. My hands are different than they were. My grip and everything has changed over the 30 years I've been bowling a lot. Back in the days on tour, most of my career, I had a thumb grip and finger grips, and those grips caused a lot of friction. So my thumb went this big and then down this big, and it hurt all the time. And but I've always had trouble getting warm my hands. So that heat never bothered me. I love the heat. So other guys be sweat pouring off of them. They're dropping like flies. And heck, I'm looking around going, man, this is pretty nice in here. What do you mean? It's comfortable. So for my whole career, it's been that way. So the heat's never bothered me. In fact, the cold bothers me more than the heat because I can't get warm. But I seem to bowl better when it's cold. When I won in Peoria, it was like 20 below zero outside. And, it's like, I don't know, when my hands are cold, I complain about it constantly, but I seem to bowl better. So I don't know.
Where is a tour stop that what was your least favorite tour stop?
Well, let's see. Least favorite tour stop. Well, let's see. I tell you what, that's a toughie because my goal in life was to cash in every event. And I can't think of a single place that I didn't go to at least get one check at. But I think that we went to someplace I didn't like to go. I never liked going back east where you guys are at because it's so crowded. But I always bowled okay up there, so that never bothered me. But I don't know. It's tough to say. I like traveling everywhere, man. I didn't have I love traveling and I love going everywhere we went. I don't have a least favorite place. Tough to say.
That's all right.
Tough to say that one.
If I could get anything I want, I would make sure that you were draft eligible so you can be picked to bowl on a PBA league team and come to Portland next year. That would be awesome.
I thought that'd be fun. I wish they'd have had something like that back in our day.
Yeah.
It looks pretty cool. Those guys look like they're having fun.
Oh yeah, definitely. So where did the PBA never go that you wish they had gone?
Pretty much anywhere around here. I mean, I know they came to Kansas City a little bit, but man, we go west, we go south, we go northeast, we go up north central, we go to Florida, we go everywhere. But the senior tour has gone to Minnesota, but the regular tour, when I was on tour, really we hit Council Bluffs at the end of my career, not during the prime time. We really just never came around the Midwest much, and that's probably partly due to the fact that bowling was bigger in the East and in Ohio area and Texas and California, because we just didn't hit too many places around. Wichita was a big bowling area, and we did go to Wichita, and I liked having to stop in Wichita, but and we had stops here in Kansas City too, and they went to Blue Springs a few years around 2000 and stuff. Yeah. So that's tough to say where they could have gone, but
Did you bowl in Blue Springs at all?
Where?
Did you bowl in Blue Springs at all?
I bowled those too. They were, I can't remember what years they were bowled them. I think they were like 2001, 2002 in those time when I wasn't bowling all that great, but I bowled them. It's 40 minutes from the other side. It's the other side of town. I live, Kansas City's kind of it's Kansas City, Kansas City, Missouri, two sides of the state line. And it's a great land mass wise. It's a great big city. So and I live on the west side and for me to go over there, it's 45 minutes from one side to the other. So it's a long drive straight through the middle of town. It's a long drive to the other side of town. So
nice. That's awesome. Hey, Bryan, when was the last time you bowled 300?
Last league season.
Oh, there you go. You're going to bowl one tonight because we're going to do a thing called Going Flush in the Pocket. It's just 12 questions. It's kind of fun. And it's just random stuff. What is your favorite food?
Tacos.
Nice.
Love tacos. Any kind of taco. My wife always asks me when we're at a Mexican restaurant, are they any good? I said, of course they're good. Like, how can you screw up a taco? You put ground beef, lettuce, cheese, tomatoes. It's a taco. There's nothing better.
You have sour cream on your taco?
No sour cream.
You
put a little salsa on there. Just a hot taco. Just a regular ground beef taco. Crunchy taco.
Oh, you ruined your whole life.
Greatest food ever made.
Oh, add the sour cream and I'll agree with you. What's your favorite music?
I like country music.
There you go.
I'm a big country music fan. Wasn't always, but I am now. I love country music.
There you go. Check out my radio station, b105radio.com. I'll send you a link. Let's see. So yeah, so we talked about it. How's your how's everything going? How's your family doing?
My family's good. Everybody's good. I've got three healthy grandchildren. One's five. One's will be three here in about 2 months, and the other two boys, and then the little girl it just turned one in October. They're healthy and they are energetic and they are so much fun. Life just seems great when I'm around my grandkids. My daughter seems healthy and happy, and so life is good. Life
Yeah,
is
good.
good.
I mean, I had to ask because when when I watched the 98 TFC and just see how just Lauren's face light up when you're winning that was just her jumping up and down. I was like, geez, I got to ask how she's doing today. And I'm glad she's doing so well.
I'll tell you what, that tournament was so hard to bowl. People don't realize that bowling in front of your hometown is harder than bowling on the road because it's so hard to concentrate. Everybody knows you. Everybody wants to talk to you. Everybody wants to say something to you. And I don't talk to anybody when I bowl. When I'm bowling, I'm in the zone, so to speak. I mean, I tune people out, and I'm lucky I'm hard of hearing because it makes it easier. So I don't. That tournament was so hard to tune everybody out and to have everybody coming. And as the tournament went on, I bowled better and better and better and better. How I ended this is we bowled the morning block before the final block, and I moved into second place. And the Chiefs were a big deal in 1998. We had Marty Schottenheimer had gone out and got some big players, and there was big expectations for the Chiefs, and it's a big deal here in Kansas City. And a news reporter had to come from they obviously sent him all the way over from the Missouri side where the stadium is and the Chiefs are. They sent him all the way over to the bowling center out in Overland Park to come interview this idiot bowler. So so he comes in the bowl. He's from one of the local channels, and he sets up. He goes, "Oh, we're going to do an interview." So he hooks up the mic. He asks me one question. I answer it. He quits, leaves, and leaves. That's it. One question, out of there. Didn't care at all. And it was so maddening to have that TV station do that when this was a big deal for bowling in Kansas City. I thought. And to have this guy come over and do that, it was really disappointing. That guy he was obvious, did not want to be there. And he just asked me one question and set it all up and then left. So I come back that afternoon, and I bowl really well and I lead the tournament. I took over from Walter Ray was leading. Can't believe I passed him. I was leading the tournament here in my hometown. I could not believe it. And then the game itself started miserably for me. I mean, I opened in the first, and Steve threw the front six. Steve Hoshus threw the front six at me. I mean, who would have thought that I won that tournament? I mean, it's just unbelievable that it rolled, and to win that was just the stars were obviously aligned that week.
Okay, just for fun. How far did he travel, and what did he ask you? Do you know? Remember?
How far what?
How far did he travel, and what did he ask you?
Oh, probably he had to go through the city 30 miles, which was probably not fun to do through traffic to get over there because this was a Friday afternoon or something. And the question he asked me was, so what do you think your chances are of winning this tournament? It's like, well, I mean, I'm in second place right now, and Walter's leading it, and I can just hope that, I hope I can hang on and make the show. That was it. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Oh my
it's
God.
Like, wow, crazy.
Oh my God. So when you were on tour, what did you do, and to take your mind off of bowling?
Well, in the winter you can't golf. So most of the time, we'd go to actually, I like to laugh. I like to laugh. So, back in the 90s, we had VCRs.
Yeah.
So I carried around a VCR with me. And when I was home, I taped off half-hour comedy. So I had Seinfeld, and I had WKRP in Cincinnati, and I had MASH, and I had everybody loves Raymond. And I took these with me and I watched half-hour comedies in my room. And if I was rooming with somebody, maybe we'd go see a movie or something. That's about all you could do in the winter. In the summer, golf. It was golf. Golf takes my mind off bowling. I love golf. I'm not a great golfer, but I love to golf.
Oh man, that's awesome. You should have asked Tommy DeLutz to take you on. He goes to comedy clubs. You should have had him take you.
Well, I don't think I've ever been to a comedy club. But I do like to. I just I would much rather laugh at life.
Oh, there you go. Now, you can't take life too seriously. It's like not to give any sob story or anything like that, but growing up disabled, I've always been a happy person, and I believe a bad day is a choice. And I mean, I'm sure people have them. I get it, but I mean, I'm the happiest person anybody will ever meet because
that's good, man. That's good.
Yeah,
I tell you what, you live longer when you're happy, I think.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, yeah. I hope.
I'm hoping we'll find out.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your favorite hangout, Bryan?
My favorite hangout?
Yeah.
Probably home. I like being at home. I like being home with my wife. I like being home with my grandkids. I like being home with my daughter when she was growing up with us. I mean, I've always liked being home.
Yeah.
I love to travel, but I love coming home. So I don't really have a real hangout. I play disc golf now. I've been playing disc golf for 27 years with a buddy of mine. And I love meeting him every week and playing disc golf with him. That's a lot of fun. So, I mean, I don't know if that's a hangout, but that's kind of my hangout. I don't drink. So, I mean, I really don't drink. So, don't bars or anything like that. So,
no. What's your favorite time of day?
My favorite time of day is right after the two times. I love my mornings. I get up early. I'm an early morning guy. I probably get up every day about 5:30, and my wife doesn't get up till later. So I always have an hour and a half by myself quietly. I do whatever I want to do. But my other favorite time of day is anytime the KU Jayhawks win a basketball game. Right after that. That's a happy time. The KU basketball, I'm a huge KU basketball fan. So I graduated from there, and obviously I'm a fan.
Did you ever hang out with Rhino Page when he was growing up? I mean,
not when he was growing up. Too much of a gap in generation, but he was coming out as I was ending my career. And I talked to Rhino a lot. Nice guy. We talked a lot. I haven't seen him in a while. Don't know what he's up to, but he seemed like a nice guy, and he just unfortunately there were too many years between us. We really weren't.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Too close.
Yeah. So, do you bowl today?
Huh? Did I bowl today?
No.
Lights outside.
No.
Put up my outside lights.
Yeah.
My wife's mad about that. They're on right now, but she's mad about that.
Yeah. No. Do you bowl today? Like, do you bowl like in current time? Do you bowl league or anything like that?
I bowl up through this summer. I was still practicing about 3-4 days a week. My summer tour ended at the end of August, a senior tour, and I've kind of decided that I might be done bowling on the senior tour full time.
Sure.
So last year might have been my last full-time senior tour. I haven't given up bowling, and I'm still bowling a few tournaments, but I've decided to take it easy on the practice for low odds. First time I'm having a hard time with it, but I'm going in 1 day a week on Wednesday mornings and practicing for about 3 hours. I bowl league on Thursday night. And then I bowl a few, I'm sure you have them in your area. You've got those local tournaments here and there. They're team singles and doubles here and there. And so I do things with some guys around that I'm still bowling those kinds of things. So just right now, I've got the 3 grandkids. I'm having so much fun. It's just really difficult to keep thinking about being gone and traveling for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. It's getting harder.
Yeah. I didn't mean to overtalk you. You said your wife was mad at what?
She was mad because I put up the Christmas lights outside and they're on. They're on. She said you could put them up, but don't turn them on. I said, well, I had to turn them on to make sure they all work tonight. And she goes, all right, well, now turn them off. No, I left them on. She's mad about that. She thinks it's too early to have them up, but we got other people in the neighborhood have them on. I love Christmas. This is my favorite time of the year.
That's awesome. That is awesome. What is your favorite vacation spot?
My wife and I go down to Eureka Springs, Arkansas every year in October. And
Mhm.
we've been going there. We bought a place down there in 1988. So I've been going down there for about 35 years. And we hike a lot. And I love it down there. Although, to be honest with you, I have 10 places I love to travel to, but I've been to whole times. I love it. We go to Cancun. We've been there about 6 times. I love it down there. But if I had to pick a place, I love going down to the Eureka Springs, and it's hillbilly country, but it's a lot of fun. It's fun, it's pretty country down there.
Yeah. Uh, I think we covered this, but favorite weather season?
Yeah, I'm an all seasons guy. I love the first hot day of summer when it's 95 and humid. I love that day. And then I love the first cloudy 65-degree day where the leaves have all changed colors and they're
Yep.
pretty out there. And then I absolutely love the first big snowfall when it's snowing 6 inches of snow and the flakes are huge and I don't have anywhere to go. And I love that. And then I love that first 72-degree windy spring day where the sunshine is shining and you're thinking about golfing again. So
Yeah,
it's hard to pick which is my favorite. I love all those.
that's all right. What would you say is your favorite toy as a child?
Woo! My favorite toy as a child. Well, I hate to tell you this, but it was a Nerf ball because I played Nerf basketball in my tiny little hallway, banged my head more than once. My mom, but I love playing Nerf basketball. So I'd have to say that was my favorite toy.
Yeah.
They don't even make the Nerf balls anymore. And now they're
Oh.
like a foam rubber thing. They don't make Nerf balls anymore. It drives me nuts.
Was it you that I was talking to? Let's see. Who did I talk to? Gosh, I've done so many of these, I lost track. But did you ever bowl in your base in your hallway in your house? Did you ever do that?
All the time. That's where I learned to bowl.
Okay.
I pretended to be every great bowler there was back in the 70s. I had a hallway that was probably 15 feet long,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe 3 feet wide. And I put 3 Tupperware cups down there and I pretended to be everybody. Earl Anthony, little bent elbow. I was Johnny Petraglia hooking the lane. I was Mark Roth hooking the lane. I was Dick Weber throwing the straight power ball. I was Gary Dickinson throwing the straight ball. I was Dave Davis with a crooked elbow throwing the ball. I was everybody on that
I feel
hallway.
like everybody. I feel like we've all done that. Now, I've actually put a hole in my parents' wall. And
Ooh,
yeah, so they had to, because I it was one of those. It wasn't a real ball. It was those Fisher Price balls that have the holes in them. So I'd actually put my fingers in the holes and whatever, and I would throw it like a real ball. And yeah, so they gave me a board to put at the end so it can protect the house, I guess. So
well, ours was just one of those plastic balls that wasn't too big, about the size of a cannonball or whatever, but it was just plastic. And the finger holes, you couldn't put your fingers in them, but they were just little holes. And I didn't ever throw it harder than just trying, just I never did any damage, but we did make too much noise. My mom got mad a lot of times, but
mhm.
hey,
So final question: what do you have any guilty pleasures?
what? Oh, yes, I do.
Guilty
Um,
pleasures.
I will go to my grave drinking Dr. Pepper. I don't care what they ever say about it. I don't. I will give up
I love it.
food before I give up Dr. and
Yeah,
Reese's peanut butter cups. I don't, and I get mad about all the other cups they make, the crunchy, the small, the thin, whatever. They can do whatever they want to. Just give me the plain old Reese's peanut butter cups. I love those things. So Dr. Pepper and Reese's peanut butter cups are my true vices. I can't give them up.
wait a minute. You haven't had the one with the chips inside yet?
I tried everything, but I don't know why. I like there's why improve on something that's perfect.
All right.
Okay. Why
All
improve
right.
on it?
Well, yeah, that's awesome. Geez, Brian, thank you very much for your time. This was awesome. I really hope you keep in touch. And Leto Monticelli is my next guest on the 28th of November. That's a Tuesday night, 8 o'clock. I hope you check that out. That's going to be awesome. Um, you know, Thank you very much, Bryan. I'm sure
Derek,
you
it's
bowled them,
been
Leto.
my pleasure. I've enjoyed it. I hope I haven't talked your ear off. And
Oh no.
so I had a blast.
No,
So
and I'm sure we'll talk again, man. I mean, keep in touch. You got your number, and you know, I'm open anytime, man.
sounds great.
All right, bud. Have a great night and my best to your family. All right.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, buddy. Bye. Bryan Goebel, that was awesome. He was that was great. So 10-time champion Bryan Goebel. He had a lot of stories. So next one is Tuesday, the 18th or the 28th with Leto Monticelli, Flush in the Pocket, presented by Brunswick and sponsored by Just in Time Recreation. Check them out, justintimebowl.com. And you know, just like them on Facebook. Man, I tell you, they're going to be going through a lot with stupid tragedy, just awful. I mean, a senseless tragedy. But talk to you soon, everybody. Have a good one.